Okay, this is another project. Very, very common scenario. The business owner had a website. Um, in this instance, it was built using the GoDaddy website builder, but they weren't getting any phone calls and they weren't getting any visitors, and they're kind of wondering, what was going on, what was stopping it from happening. So the first part of this project was to sort of have a look at, what could you see as a consumer that this business was presenting to people. So even if they did get traffic or if they spent money on ads, what would they see? In the very first instance, it was a straightforward website. It's talking about they do construction, couple of like, different things of service. I guess visually it looks like they can, design and then build something. Um, photo of the guys working, which is good. So at least you can kind of see that they're real. Couple of licenses and stuff. So in the first instance, it's like, okay, the basics, the absolute basics are there. Like it's a business, right? But then when you sort of dig a little bit further, there's not a lot of depth to the site. So in other words, yes, this kind of makes sense to a human, but not necessarily to a search robot, which obviously creates the reason for not having much traffic. Then it starts to get a little bit confusing. So what do they actually do? Because they're talking about new buildings here, then apartments, then commercial and shop fronts. So I'm assuming like retail shop fronts, but then talks about kitchen and bathroom, decking. So then it gets on to like structural, re-roofing. There's a really wide variance of stuff. So in other words, can a builder do all of these things? Absolutely. Any builder obviously has got the license to be able to go and carry out all these different things. Even building a dwelling, I think that's up to two levels tall. So the challenge though is that in each of these, apartment renovating, new dwelling building, commercial refits, kitchen, bathroom, decking, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of competitors because in each niche, there are companies that specialize in maybe just doing decking, and then you've got maybe landscapers and renovators that might do decking. You've got carpenters. So you've got so many different competitors in each niche. There's no way in the world you can put all of these things on one page and hope to get found for it. It's just impossible. What the search robots are looking for is obviously a dedicated page to do with that service, to have any chance of even getting recognized for it. Then the second layer is you need to have a truckload of content about that topic to get found for it in amongst all the competitors that are competing for that same thing. So straight away, that explained the reason for this business owner as to why they weren't getting found. Um, the more human part of it is if you're a consumer, there's a lot of stuff on here. So for some people, they're going to look at it and say, there's no way in the world they can probably do all of this really, really well. Maybe they're really good at some things and not others, blah blah blah, right? But the challenge is there's not a lot of proof. There's no reviews. There's not lots of photos. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, these photos could have come from anywhere from the internet, so you can't really tell what is their speciality. And these things become really important when you're trying to get someone to choose your business. So even when you go into this projects area, that's good that at least you can see that they're working on something like this. But what is that? So in other words, were they renovating just the top unit? Were they doing remedial work for the whole building? It's obviously not clear. It's good that you can see the owner. It's good that you can see a mess. But then here, what you really want to be seeing is maybe before and after and some explanation about the work was. So the challenge is you're asking a potential client to do a lot of work to figure out what it is that they do and can they do it really well. So there is some nice photos in here, but from a user experience, it's kind of a lot without being really clear. And that's the challenge. Like when you're trying to convince someone to choose you or to put an inquiry through, there'll be a fair few people, and now I'm kind of stuck. I don't know why the menu doesn't work. Um, that will look at all this stuff before they make a decision on who to choose. The other thing is if you think about human nature, they want to see beautiful rooms, beautiful structures, beautiful finished work. So, on one hand, it kind of makes sense to show that you're able to build a property, but on the other hand, it really should focus on, beautiful finished jobs of different types to try and create trust that they're able to do that sort of work. So the first part of the project was doing an audit, went through all of this, um, explained to them what was missing, uh, did some competitive reviews. So we looked at some of their local competitors, and then obviously we came to the scope of work, which was build a new website, which is what we've done. And so we've created, I guess, step one, which is present a business that has really clear services, has a much clearer definition around what they do. So, in other words, we've decided to focus on renovating existing sites. There's not the commercial stuff, there's not the shops. All those things could be added, but right now it's really about getting clarity around exactly what they can do. So, beautiful visuals, a bit more explanation about what they can do, some real clear focus areas, showing reviews, giving people a link to the originals if they want to go see them, a little bit more visual, a little bit more content because we're trying to get this site to get found for some of this stuff, explaining the process, etc. And then obviously a little bit of a profile about the owner. So straight away now there's a little bit more clarity, a little bit more content, a little bit more visual to build trust and to build a little bit of social proof. Some examples of work completed. So we've shown off some of the before and after of work that was done. And so straight away, we're creating a little bit more clarity around, what are the things that this business can deliver. The other benefit to doing this, it adds a little bit more content to the site. And so stage one is obviously get some of these basics right, and then this can get built on over time. A gallery that's a little bit more clear where you can see, finished projects, um, and then service pages where they go into a little bit more detail around what can be done for this specific service, and this is kind of like step one. And so obviously if more content's created, we can show off different apartment jobs on this page, can show off more reviews that are specific to apartments. But the first step was really to clean up the baseline of what was getting presented. And so some people then ask me, well, how do you know if any of this works? Well, the site's now been connected to Search Console. We can already see there's been improvements made. There's already different phrases now that are getting recognized. So in this case here, the strongest page working so far is for the apartments page, which is great. But if I expand this out, you can see unit renovations, apartment, Federation Home, because we've got a page there about old houses, kitchen starting to show up. So there's a lot more now getting recognized than it ever was before. It's not ranking, this has only been, week 3 or 4. But what it's showing the owner is that the changes at least started, or there's been a progression that's been made. And so what I've also been able to show them now is that uh, there's changes to what the site is getting recognized for. And we can start to see apartment renovation Sydney, they're getting close to being in the 10. And this is going to fluctuate over the next few weeks because Google's kind of figuring out, did what we create be good enough to compete with all these other companies that are trying to chase the same thing. And so this is kind of step one. We have some data we can work with. We've created a better baseline for people to look at in terms of what this business presents. I can see whether people obviously make inquiries. Analytics have now been set up as well, so we can see where visitors are coming from. So one of the first things I've already let I've identified is that they're getting visitors from organic search, which is great. They're getting some from direct traffic, which looks a bit dodgy because it's less than 10 seconds. And believe it or not, I can tell why it's coming from overseas. Could be previous backlinks that were created on the site. So all of these different observations, I can now feed back to the owner to say, hey, this is what we can now see that's happening because this is the first time they've ever had data. And then this is what the corrective actions are. So we can see straight away that the Aussie visitors are now spending at least 2 minutes on the site, which is great. France is showing up, but that's where the owner is right now, so we can discount that as being good traffic. But the biggest issue right now is there's probably a couple of backlinks in coming from Czechia, which we need to get rid of to help improve the quality of traffic to the site. Tracking's been set up so we can see if people go to the contact page, if they're hitting the quote button, the email button, etc. Right now, without doing a lot more data digging, this looks like there's lots of people, but I have a feeling it's some of the dodgy bot visits and it's not genuine. But at least now there's data and actionable insights that can come from it to be able to prove whether this thing's working or not. The last step was to look at the Google Businessman profile. So obviously we're not finished in the month of May, but there's already been a couple of phone calls. There's already been clicks to the website, and that's because we've cleaned up the profile. So the information is more clearer. We've added an update. We've added all the the social profiles. And so it means that we're getting a lot of the basics right so that this business has a chance of getting found, whereas before they were invisible. And so the first thing that will probably happen because they're based in Lilyfield is in that area, probably within 2 or 3 kilometers, they'll get found for doing renovating around the Lilyfield area. And the next phase of work, which is up to the business owner to now decide on, is whether to add more projects, so examples of the work, or to start building out location pages to try and get found in different locations in Sydney, or to create helpful information pages. So, in other words, talking about different aspects to do with renovating, whether it's an old house, an apartment, the things that he wants to get business for. And so those strands of work become the next phase, but it's all about adding content to the site to try and get found for these things because at the end of the day, he's starting from ground zero, meaning he was invisible. There's thousands of competitive websites, whether it's blogs, news websites, other tradies, other builders, carpenters, bathroom renovators, you name it. He's trying to chase all these different niches. So it's a competitive space. If he wants to get found with organic search, the only way is with content. The other way is obviously to run paid ads. But right now, there's probably not enough information on this website to convert a lot of the visitors from paid ads because we probably need to see a lot more examples of work and probably a lot more reviews to build people's trust. And so that's some of the work that I've obviously shared with the owner. And so, hey, we'll come back in a couple of months and see how things have progressed. But this is stage one of, improving what was a very simple website that had lots of cluster information now to at least being a little bit clearer, visually more appealing, and set up a little bit better for search. And we can already see there's some improvements that are being made from that perspective. And guess what? All the data is now available. The owner's got access to it, so he can see everything that's going on as well. There's no hiding. The data doesn't lie. It is what it is. And so all of a sudden, it makes me accountable, but it also lets them make decisions around what gets done next in terms of the next steps for the website.